Episode 28, The Convergence Beneath the Ley Line, Convergence Beneath Stormwatch Palace was dying. Elena felt it the moment they descended into the lower levels, a wrongness that went deeper than failing wards or corrupted magic. The stone steps were slick with condensation that shouldn't exist this far underground, and the air tasted of copper and decay. King Edric moved slowly ahead of her, one hand braced against the wall, his breathing labored. The corruption spreading through his chest had darkened visibly even in the hour since they'd met, black veins now reaching toward his throat. The convergence chamber was sealed after the last reinforcement attempt, he said, his voice rough. 3 days ago. 12 magisters died trying to stabilize it. And you were leading them, Elena said quietly. He didn't answer, but the tightness in his shoulders was confirmation enough. Ambassador Wintermere followed 2 steps behind, her ice-blonde hair disheveled, dark circles under her eyes. She'd been awake for days, Elena realized, riding 3 days without rest to reach Thornhaven, then immediately returning with Elena. The woman was operating on pure desperate will. The pattern started 6 weeks ago, Wintermere said, her voice flat with exhaustion. Small fluctuations in the eastern ley nodes. We thought it was natural degradation. By the time we realized it was targeted. Targeted, Elena repeated. You're certain? See for yourself. The convergence chamber doors were massive, ancient oak reinforced with iron and inscribed with wards that flickered weakly in the torchlight. 2 guards stood watch, their faces pale, hands trembling on their spear hafts. They stepped aside immediately when they saw their king. King Edric pressed both palms against the doors. Elena felt the surge of magic as he fed power into the locks, watched corruption spread a little further up his arms as he paid the price. The doors groaned open, releasing a wave of cold air that made her breath mist. The chamber beyond was vast, larger than Thornhaven's grand hall, the ceiling lost in shadows. The floor was a massive geometric pattern, ley lines made visible through centuries of magical reinforcement, silver-white channels carved into black stone. Except now those channels were cracked and broken, leaking pale light like blood from a wound. And at the center, where the lines converged, was darkness. Not shadow, not absence of light. True darkness, the kind that shouldn't exist in the material world. It pulsed slowly, rhythmically, like a heartbeat. Each pulse sent ripples through the damaged ley lines, and Elena felt the distortion in her bones. Gods, she whispered. King Edric descended the steps into the chamber, moving carefully around the broken channels. Elena followed, her monitoring equipment already active, recording corruption levels that made no sense. The readings were spiking and dropping in patterns, not random fluctuations, but deliberate sequences. She knelt at the edge of the nearest break, examining where the ley line had fractured. The stone was smooth, too smooth, not cracked by force or degraded by time, but carved, precisely, methodically carved from beneath. Someone did this, she said. Someone with access to the convergence chamber. Someone who knew exactly where to weaken the channels to create cascade failures. Wintermere's face went white. That's impossible. Only the royal family and senior magisters have access. The chamber is under constant guard. Then it's someone you trust, Elena said flatly. She moved to the next break, then the next, documenting the pattern. Each cut was identical, placed at precise intervals to maximize destabilization. This wasn't decay. This was sabotage. How many magisters survived the reinforcement attempt? 4, King Edric said. He'd reached the edge of the darkness at the center, standing just beyond its reach. Magister Corwin, Magister Ashlyn, Magister Brennan, and myself. Where are they now? Corwin is in the infirmary, unconscious from corruption backlash. Ashlyn is coordinating the evacuation of Frostholm survivors. Brennan. He paused. Brennan disappeared the night after the reinforcement failed. We assumed he fled in fear. Elena stood slowly, her mind racing. Or he fled because he knew what was coming. Because he was the one who sabotaged the ley lines. The silence that followed was broken only by the pulse of darkness at the chamber's heart. Wintermere found her voice first. Brennan has served the Eastern Reach for 20 years. He fought in the border wars. He saved the king's life at Ironhold. Why would he? I don't know, Elena said. But I know what this is. She gestured at the darkness. This isn't the Voidweaver breaking through naturally. Someone created a deliberate weak point in your wards and then used that weakness to punch a hole straight to the entity's prison. They're trying to free it. King Edric turned to face her, and in the pale light from the dying ley lines, Elena could see how much the corruption had already taken. His eyes were bloodshot, veins dark against the whites. His skin had taken on a grayish cast. He had days at most, possibly hours. "Can you stop it?" he asked. "With conventional magic?" Elena wanted to lie, wanted to tell him yes, that she could reinforce the wards, seal the breach, save his kingdom without anyone paying Cassian's price. But she'd promised herself she would never lie about this. "No," she said, "the damage is too extensive. The ley lines are fundamentally compromised. Even if we had 50 magisters and unlimited time, we couldn't repair this. The convergence is dying." "Then what do we do?" Elena's hand moved unconsciously to her satchel, where Seraphina's journals waited. The forbidden technique described in careful, clinical detail. Consume the Voidweaver's essence. Become its prison. Trade one sacrifice for another. She could do it. Right here, right now. Use the technique Seraphina had developed but refused to employ. Corrupt herself, interface with that darkness, and seal it inside her own consciousness. The Eastern Reach would be saved. The continental ley line network would stabilize. Cassian's sealing would have another 57 years. And Elena Brightwater would spend the next 3 centuries frozen in corruption, slowly forgetting who she was. "There is a way," she heard herself say, "a forbidden technique that could seal the breach. But the cost—" "Do it," King Edric said immediately. "You don't understand what I understand perfectly." He stepped closer, and Elena could smell the corruption on him, sweet and rotten. "You're describing what your warden did, what Cassian Netherbane did to save your kingdom. You're asking if I'm willing to make the same sacrifice." Elena's throat tightened. "You're already dying. The corruption from the failed reinforcement will kill me in a week." "Yes," he smiled, and it was terrible. "So I have nothing to lose and everything to save. Tell me what to do." "No," Wintermere said sharply. "Edric, you can't. I can, and I will." The king's voice was firm, commanding. "I led the working that failed. I chose to reinforce rather than evacuate. 30,000 people died because I made the wrong choice. I won't let the entire kingdom fall because I'm afraid of the price." Elena looked at him, really looked at him, saw the guilt and determination and terrible understanding in his eyes. He knew exactly what he was choosing. Knew he would stand frozen for 3 centuries while his consciousness slowly fragmented. Knew he would forget his children's names, his wife's face, the taste of wine, and the smell of rain, and he was choosing it anyway. "It won't work," Elena said quietly. "You're already corrupted, already dying. The technique requires someone strong enough to contain the Voidweaver's essence while maintaining their identity. You'd fragment immediately." She watched the hope die in his eyes, replaced by despair so profound it made her chest ache. "Then what?" "I'll do it," Elena said. The words hung in the cold air like frost crystals. Wintermere's sharp intake of breath. King Edric's shocked silence, and beneath it all, the steady pulse of darkness at the chamber's heart, waiting. "You're the keeper," Edric said finally. "Your kingdom needs you. The 74 need you." "The 74 will have Liana," Elena replied. Her voice was steady, though her hands shook. "She knows the communication patterns. She can maintain the vigil. And if I don't stop this, the continental ley line network will destabilize within months. Cassian's sealing will fail in 30 years instead of 57. Everything he sacrificed for will be lost." "There has to be another way," Wintermere said desperately. "Some conventional approach we haven't tried." "There isn't." Elena pulled Seraphina's journals from her satchel, the leather worn smooth by centuries of handling. "This is what the first keeper discovered. This is what she chose not to do. But she had 300 years to work with. We have months." She opened the journal to the marked page, the technique described in Seraphina's precise handwriting, the corruption sequence, the consumption ritual, the method for interfacing with pure chaos while maintaining enough identity to serve as a conscious prison. It was elegant, in a terrible way. It was also impossible to survive as yourself. "I need to think," Elena said. "I need to examine the breach more closely, confirm the technique will work here. And I need—" She swallowed hard. "I need to send a message to Thornhaven, to Liana, to tell her what I'm considering. How long? King Edric asked. Give me until dawn. If I can find any other option, any conventional approach that might work, I'll take it. But if I can't, she didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. King Edric nodded slowly. I'll have the magisters prepare whatever materials you need. And Elena, he met her eyes, his own already clouding with corruption. Thank you for coming, for trying, for being willing to pay a price no one should have to pay. Elena watched him leave, Wintermere supporting him up the steps. Then she turned back to the darkness at the chamber's heart. It pulsed, steady, patient, waiting. She knelt at the edge of the nearest ley line break and began her examination, her instruments recording corruption patterns and structural damage. But part of her mind was already elsewhere, already walking through the steps of the forbidden technique, already accepting what she would have to become. Cassian had done this for Thornhaven, had corrupted himself, consumed a soul, channeled the power of 73 dead mages, and sealed the Voidweaver at the cost of his humanity. Could she do less for the Eastern Reach? For the Continental Ley Line Network? For the 57 years Cassian had bought with his sacrifice? Her hands moved over the damaged stone, documenting, analyzing, searching desperately for an alternative that didn't exist. The corruption readings were clear. The sabotage was deliberate. The breach was expanding. And somewhere in Thornhaven, Cassian stood frozen in the grand hall, his consciousness merged with 73 others, slowly forgetting who he was. Elena pulled out her notebook, the one she'd kept for 4 months, documenting every communication, every pattern, every fragment of the man Cassian had been. She turned to a blank page and began to write. Cassian. I understand now. I understand why you did it, why you consumed Kale's soul, why you channeled that terrible power, why you chose 3 centuries of imprisonment over letting the kingdom fall. I understand because I'm about to make the same choice. The Eastern Reach is collapsing. Someone sabotaged their ley lines deliberately, trying to free the Voidweaver. If I don't stop it, the Continental Network will destabilize, and your sealing will fail decades early. Everything you sacrificed for will be lost. Serafina found a way to seal breaches like this. Corrupt yourself, consume the entity's essence, become its prison. She chose not to use it, but she had 300 years. We have months. I'm going to do it, Cassian. I'm going to become what you became. And I need you to know, I'm not doing this because I'm noble or brave or heroic. I'm doing it because I can't watch another kingdom fall. Because I can't let your sacrifice be for nothing. Because someone has to pay this price, and I'm the only one here who knows how. Leanna will maintain your vigil. She knows the patterns. She'll keep reading to you, keep reminding you who you were. And maybe, in 3 centuries, when both our prisons finally fail, we'll wake up and remember each other. Or maybe we'll have forgotten everything by then. Our names, our faces, our reasons for choosing this. Maybe that's the real price, not the 3 centuries of imprisonment, but the slow dissolution of everything that made us human. I love you. I don't know if I've ever said that out loud, but I need to write it now, while I still remember what love feels like. While I still remember who Elena Brightwater was before she became a prison for chaos. Tell Liana I'm sorry. Tell Verena she was right about the knowledge being corrosive. Tell King Edric that sometimes the forbidden path is the only path left. And Cassian, when you pulse your patterns, when you send your 5 beats for I hear you, I remember, know that somewhere in the Eastern Reach there's another prison pulsing back, another consciousness slowly fragmenting. Another person who understood what you did and why it mattered. We'll be alone together, you and I, separated by 1,000 miles, but bound by the same terrible choice. I hope that's enough. Elena. She folded the letter carefully, sealed it, and tucked it into her satchel. Then she returned to examining the breach, her instruments recording data she already understood. The darkness pulsed. Elena Brightwater knelt before it, Serafina's journals open beside her, and began to prepare for a sacrifice that would last 300 years. Dawn was 6 hours away. She would find no alternative before then. She already knew that, but she had to try, had to exhaust every option, examine every possibility, search desperately for a solution that didn't require her to become a living prison, because that's what Cassian would have done. And because, for a few more hours, she was still Elena Brightwater. Still human. Still herself. The corruption would take that soon enough.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.